We are from Group 4 S06 and today we are going to explore an ecosystem that are very familiar especially to the communities on the east coast of Malaysia, which is coral reef ecosystem. I'm sure many of you have heard about coral reefs before, but let me explain it again. So what is coral reef? Coral reefs are underwater ecosystem made up of tiny animals. Yes, you heard that right. They are made of small animals called polyps or corals. Over thousands of years, this coral built huge structure that become homes to fish, turtles and many other species. Even though they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, they support around 25% of all marine species. Now, we already know what are coral reefs. Let's take a look at one place in Malaysia that you can find coral reefs there.
Beneath the waves of Pulau Redang lies a world as colorful and alive as a rainforest but underwater. This marine park on Malaysia's east coast is one of the richest in the country, with coral reefs almost as diverse as those in the Coral Triangle, the global hotspots of reef biodiversity. Surveys rate Redang's reef as fair to good in health, with about 42% coral cover, clear water and relatively low damage. Even after major El Nino events, the reefs prove resilient. Thanks to conservation measures like fishing bans and reef monitoring, Redang remains both a paradise for visitors and a vital sanctuary that shows us why protecting coral reefs matters.
Coral reef are like underwater city full of life, and plants are the ones that keep the whole city running. The main plants in the coral reef are algae, seaweeds, and seagrasses. They act as primary producers and produce sunlight for energy and forming layers of the food. So the first one is algae. Algae produce oxygen and provide food and even help to the reef structure. Meanwhile, seaweed increase biodiversity by giving food and shelter to marine life. And last but not least, seagrasses which grow in a shallow sandy area, stabilizing the seabed, reducing erosion and keeping the water clear for the corals. Overall, these plants are vital because they support the people, provide habitat and act as indicator for the healthy reef ecosystem.
The fauna found in the coral reefs of Pulau Redang is highly diverse. It represents the main groups of marine animals. There are many types of fauna that you can find there, but the main types are fish species, which consist reef fish, clownfish, groupers and snappers, also barracudas and trevallies. Next is invertebrates, which are sea anemones, coral reef, giant clams and sea cucumbers. Other than that, mollusks and crustaceans also is one of the main types of fauna that you can find there. For example, you can find octopus, lobster and hermit crabs. For the larger predator, we can find black-tipped reef sharks and whale sharks. These fauna are very important in the coral reef ecosystem. For instance, coral and sponge provide habitat for countless species, and the herbivorous fish is important to control the algae growth.
The coral reef ecosystem around Pulau Redang is extremely important, not only for marine organisms but also for humans. For marine life, the reef provides a habitat, food, and breeding grounds. For example, fish and invertebrates depend on the reef for shelter from predators, while plants like algae and seagrass contribute to the food chain. Without coral reefs, many marine species would struggle to survive. For humans, coral reefs are important because they support fisheries and tourism industries. Fishermen rely on reef fish as a source of food and income, while tourists travel from all over the world just to see the beautiful reef of Redang. The reefs also protect coastal communities by acting as natural barriers against strong waves, storms, and even tsunamis. On a global scale, the coral reefs play a role in the carbon cycle by absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which helps to regulate climate. So, the coral reef ecosystem is not just about marine biodiversity, it also connects directly to human survival and economic stability. Losing coral reefs would mean losing one of the most valuable ecosystems on our planet.
Now, we are going to talk about ways to conserve the coral reefs. First of all, authorities should use law enforcement, such as fishing bans and marine park regulation. Fishing bans is a regulatory measures that prohibit fishing activities in specific areas or during designated period in order to support the recovery of fishery resources. On the other hand, marine park regulations are created for the purpose of conservation, education, scientific studies, and recreation. These parks prohibit activities that can harm the coral reef, such as polluting and disposing any contaminants. Secondly, is through coral reef monitoring and rehabilitation. For example, there is an NGO called Reef Check Malaysia, or RCM for short. This NGO trains certified divers to monitor over 300 reef sites. Not only that, they also organize an annual survey of coral reef around Malaysia, including Pulau Redang. The data that they collected is then used to indicate what steps can be taken to conserve this beautiful coral reef. Now, you might be wondering, what about us? We are just regular people. Can we do anything about it? Yes, there are several things that you can do to conserve the coral reef, such as conserve water. Why? The less water that you use, the less runoff and wastewater will pollute the ocean. Next is to dive responsibly when visiting the coral reef. Remember, coral reefs are not only alive, they are also delicate. So, we need to avoid touching them in order to avoid damaging them. And lastly, volunteering. You can volunteer in local beach or reef cleanups. But if you live far away from a coast, then you can get involved in protecting your local watershed instead.